Good evening and welcome to our special series of shows on restarting India, the new normal. Well, this evening we have the biggest names in the travel and hospitality industry, from aviation, hotels and tourism. I'm joined by Ajay Singh of SpiceJet, Puneet Chhatwal of the Indian Hotels Group. I'm joined also by Deep Kalra of Make My Trip. I'm joined by Ajay Bakaya of Sarovar Hotels and Navjeet Ahluwalia of Hilton India. First, they've all come together to take this safety pledge as India begins to restart.
Have a safe trip. Familiar words, but these are unfamiliar times.
This is not a wish anymore. It's a safety pledge.
Which is why the next time we say these words,
it won't just be a wish.
it'll be a safe travel pledge. Have a safe trip.
Have a safe trip.
Have a safe trip, because we recognize your need to travel and assure you that
For every step you take, we will take two. For your safety, have a safe trip.
Have a safe trip.
Have a safe trip. We will maintain our distance.
But our commitment will still touch your heart.
Our smiles may be hidden behind masks,
But you will feel them in everything we do.
like maintaining the highest standards of hygiene.
And never washing our hands of our responsibilities.
And offer you with memorable experiences. Have a safe trip.
Have a safe trip. But our pledge needs
One more thing to succeed.
your support.
your support.
Your support.
Your support.
So please take the safe travel pledge with us.
So that together we ensure that you have a safe trip.
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 Have a safe trip. Well, the big focus, Ajay Singh of SpiceJet, on Monday, India begins flying again. How will airlines ensure safety? We know the very detailed procedure laid out by the government, but the worry will remain for the passengers of that first flight. What would you say today to assure passengers who want to now fly?
Well, I would just say that if at all you have to travel or you want to travel, there is no safer way to do it than by flying. The reason for that is that, firstly, a very detailed process has been laid out for contactless travel, which includes, the web check-in, the way the baggage is dropped off, the way the security check is conducted. All that is designed to ensure that there is no crowding at the airports. Your temperature will be checked. The airport authorities will ensure that you don't have any symptoms of the COVID disease. Once you get to the aircraft, there is again a very stringent set of protocols. Of course, airlines will be required to clean the aircraft well. All passengers will be required to wear a face mask and a face shield. We will give disinfectant fluid. Every possible precaution has been taken. Within the aircraft itself, the cabin is about the safest that you can find of any cabins from any other mode of transport. The way aircraft are designed, air is circulated from the top to the bottom, escapes through the vents at the bottom, and there are HEPA filters which absolutely completely clean the air of virus and bacteria. And this air is circulated every 2 or 3 minutes. There is nothing of the sort happens by any other mode of transport. If you imagine going on a bus or on a metro or on a train or on an air-conditioned train, none of this happens. So this is the safest.
That's actually very important, because many passengers have been asking that you're going to be in a closed cabin space, you're going to have air pressure control, so you're sharing the same air as so many others. And of course, the question that the middle seat will not be vacant. So the question being asked is this to balance a question of revenue issues, that you're not keeping the middle seat vacant, that the government has decided not to keep the middle seat vacant. What's your take on that, and the fact that even despite the fact that you're sharing the same air, that is going to stay safe?
Well, firstly, on the middle seat was purely cosmetic. This whole discussion around keeping the middle seat vacant was cosmetic, because if you look at the distance between the window seat and the aisle seat, it's 16 inches. So it was not really fulfilling any social distancing norms by keeping that middle seat vacant. If you really wanted social distancing on aircraft, you would have to sit on the two window seats and leave everything else vacant. In addition to that, you would also have to leave two rows vacant. So there was no way that you could actually get true social distancing on an aircraft.
Right.
So some people have said, of course, that it would have been a great psychological boost if there was nobody sitting next to you. But I think what is more important is to see whether it is actually effective. And what is effective on aircraft really is ensuring that you're wearing your face mask and that your hands are clean, etc. And that we are scrubbing the aircraft clean after every journey. So I think that in terms of the circulation of the air, I think it's completely and scientifically proven. The manufacturers have weighed in on this as well. In the early days, what used to happen is that the air used to circulate from the front to the back. So you could conceivably share the same air. Now the air actually comes from the roof, near the roof, and it comes down to the floor. And it just escapes through vents where it is cleaned. And this happens every 2 or 3 minutes. Right. So this is cleaner than being in your own homes. Most of us don't have HEPA filters which are cleaning our air and recirculating at that pace. So this is safer than being in your car. It's safer than being in your home, and therefore this is by far the safest way to travel from one place to the other.
It's safer than being in your car, safer than being in your home. Well, that's interesting and reassuring to hear. But let me just bring in Mr. Puneet Chhatwal, who of course is the head of one of the biggest hotel groups of India. Mr. Chhatwal, well, India restarting step by step, flights starting, but hotels, restaurants, hospitality sector still grounded, as it were. Do you think it's now time for hotels to open up as well with all safety precautions? And when we saw that safety pledge taken by all the big names of the hospitality industry, what does it mean for somebody who wants to come and stay at a hotel? Is this the right time, or do we need to actually just wait many more months before it's safe to travel for leisure or business?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think the encouraging news is that the travel has started, and travel is very important for any kind of demand that is created for people to use hotels. So I think the air travel starts, the trains have started, and I'm seeing I'm told a lot of bookings, heavy bookings on trains, especially from Mumbai to Delhi. This is very positive, and I think we are ready to commence operations. We are waiting to hear from the government, and actually we are already up and running. We are doing a lot of service to the medical staff. We are catering to the people who are on repatriation flights. So it's not that all the hotels are shut down. There are many which are shut down, and I think the fun part of life is to travel. The fun part of life is to be in hotels. They're hopefully as safe as Ajay has described the airlines are, if not safer. And from our point of view, we are going to launch a relaunch, what we called Tajness a few years ago, and that's a commitment re-strengthened, including the new norms, the new normal, the new safety and hygiene regulations. And we feel very confident that we are ready to go.
Let me bring in Deep Kalra here. Deep Kalra, I think really now the mantra from Make My Trip to have a safe trip in a sense. And we talked just before the finance minister and the prime minister announced a 20 lakh crore package, a stimulus package. But once the details are out, the facts remain that actually travel, tourism, aviation hasn't got anything in that package at all. We've seen that the FHRI is saying that 70% of hotels and restaurants could shut down if there's no economic package given. What do you think needs to happen now as India actually restarts?
Yeah, and that's the whole point, Sonia. I think the message is loud and clear that this industry, which contributes, by the way, almost 10% of our GDP, employs more than 10% of our people, this industry is going to be on its own. So this industry needs to take care of itself, and the only way it can right now is to get the approval to start functioning. So I think the start on 25th of May of domestic flights is a great one. It's very encouraging. And it's only logical that the other constituents of the industry are also allowed to function, because when people travel, they need to stay somewhere. Not everyone is going home or to someone else's house. People are also going to start traveling for work because there is enough business which only gets done when people meet face to face, when people are in the markets, meeting their distributors, meeting their stockists, meeting their retailers. That's very classic trade and how it works in India. So I think for all of that, people also need to have accommodations. So I think when the wheels of this industry start moving, only then can we start contributing back to the economy and ensuring that the people who are employed in this industry hold on to their jobs, are productive, are busy, and are contributing towards the companies that make up the industry. So I think it's super critical that this industry is allowed to function now with all the safety norms in place. And that's what the safety pledge is all about. And that's why we've come together with the whole industry to really say that there's an equal responsibility on companies as well as on individual travelers to ensure that they will be safe and they will travel in a safe manner while going about their work.
In fact, I'd like to bring in Mr. Bakaya as well, Ajay Bakaya of Sarovar Hotels and Resorts, because that indication that we have to do this on our own. What would you like to say, maybe perhaps ask the finance minister today that what the industry needs, because it's not really about a leisure industry, is it? It's also about the jobs that are associated with this, the question, the worry over layoffs if hotels remain shut for a while. So what would you like to actually ask for at this critical time? And when we talk about safety as well, for instance, what happens if someone in a hotel tests positive? How do you give assurance to customers, or how do you make sure that the spread, how do you balance the worry over lives versus livelihood?
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you very much. Well, to the first question, what would we ask of our finance minister? We have, by the way, been asking for some time now and been knocking on that door. And our big singular ask was to provide a waiver on interest and loan repayments for 4 quarters. The RBI governor announced a waiver for the second quarter today. So you know, some of us are smiling just a little bit more. There is a glimmer of hope. We got something from the central government. Our parallel ask of the state governments was to charge us electricity tariffs on what we actually consume and not what we contracted for. And half a dozen states have agreed to that. We're also asking the states to defer licensing fees because licenses are not being used. Similarly, property taxes fees. To your second question, what happens if somebody tests positive in a hotel? You know, in reality, it is bound to happen at some stage. And we have to learn to live with COVID. We have to learn to live with COVID for a few months, perhaps a year or two. And during that process, we have to be exceedingly sensitive to the implications if somebody tests positive. So we bring in every possible precaution into play, both at the employee end, and we have been training and sensitizing our employees to what it all means for themselves and for their customers and for everybody else they interact with. So while we have been in ICU for the last couple of months, we have been preparing to fly. And part of it is training our employees through videos, through Zoom calls, through actual physical trainings on this whole business of social distancing, masks, gloves in certain areas, sanitization dispensers available all over the place, etc., 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 door handles, public area washrooms, all those things. Now, so we're taking every possible precaution at every level to make sure that the virus is defeated, so to say. Right. What happens if something happens, if a case happens in a hotel? Well, we would expect that a particular guest room is sealed off for 14 days. We won't expect a dramatic reaction. We say seal off the hotel or seal off the whole building. And as we move on, we will develop better and better understanding and better protocol how to fight the virus. And hopefully, with all these scientists across the world working on answers, we have an answer sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. And if I can bring Mr. Navjeet Ahluwalia, we're seeing that in many places in Europe that, flights have opened up. Tourism is slowly starting to open up in some parts. But Mr. Ahluwalia, at a time when cases in India are growing, I mean, we are now at over 120,000 cases. How do we answer that critical question? I may raise the question about the number of people dependent on the tourism sector. How do we balance this issue of layoffs and the genuine worry that people have that this is not the right time to perhaps be looking at leisure? Travel is associated largely with leisure, even though, of course, there's business travel as well. But this is the time that we should actually stay at home.
Yeah, Sonia, so I think a good point. We are seeing a lot of green shoots in many other parts of the world. That gives us confidence that slowly but surely things will start getting back to normal. I mean, in China, we're already seeing 40% occupancy building in our hotels. In North America, most of our hotels are opening up. And so I think while in those countries, we've already seen the peak, in India, we are continuing to see new cases, and obviously that's a worry. But as you rightly pointed out, it's very important that we have to balance somehow humanitarian health crisis and the livelihood crisis. Both have to be looked after. And so inevitably we have to open up. And at this point in time, people are going to look at who to trust. Like, how do you trust where to stay, where to travel? And I think therefore it's very important that hotel companies come together to offer that kind of comfort to guests who are going to stay with us. At Hilton, we've tied up with Mayo Clinic, which is one of the best hospitals in the United States. They are offering us advice on hygiene and sanitation. So we are bringing hospital level hygiene and sanitation to hotels. And we've also tied up with Reckitt Benckiser, who makes Lysol and Dettol. And we have a full, operating hotel
sanitation
clean stay program that will kind of offer confidence to guests who are staying with us that they are safe.
I mean, it really is a new normal that now we see hotels tying up with the Mayo Clinic. But if I can come back to Ajay Singh of SpiceJet, just looking, sir, at the latest CRISIL report, which estimated a revenue loss of 24,000 to 25,000 crores this fiscal, and reports coming in that, in fact, the government was initially reluctant to open up flights, but did it only after the indication came that some airlines could actually shut down if they didn't open up flights to some sectors. Was the situation that bad that airlines were actually looking at closing down if it hadn't opened up? And do you think this is a decision which is driven just by economics but also makes sense? Do you think it makes sound medical sense at this point?
Well, I think it's clear to everybody that we have to live with this COVID for the next year or two. And the question is that I think there were clear indications from the government that they do need to open up the economy. Now, is it really possible to open up economy without public transport? We don't really think so. And when you start opening up public transport and you look at aviation, it's clear that this is a controlled environment. You can actually ensure that, for example, people are wearing face masks, people are wearing those face shields. There is a controlled environment within the cabin. There is a certain process at the airports. This is not something that's so easy to do in, let's say, in public transport buses or in metros and, trains and so on and so forth. So I think the decision to open flights was really because they wanted to open the economy. At some point of time, you have to decide that you have to take all the precautions, but having taken those precautions, you need to get moving again. What is happening currently is that if you can keep staying in lockdown forever, that's the safest. Of course, that's always the safest thing to do. But can you keep doing it? Because, your infections will go on rising in any case. Then how long will you stay shut? Will it be 1 month, 2 months, 6 months? So I don't think that the government was, so hugely concerned about the survival of airlines. I think it was more about trying to open the economy and public transport and aviation and airlines being a part of that opening up process.
But because we have heard some chief ministers say that, you should actually delay this whole issue of flights restarting. There have been some worries also about whether passengers will be in quarantine when they go from one state to the other. So there's still not clarity on that. What do you think is the best way? Do you think that it makes sense for passengers to be in quarantine? Because, for instance, cities like Mumbai are seen as hotspots going to another state. How are you what would you say as a head of an airline is the best way, safest way for states to let passengers in at this moment? And what would you say to chief ministers who say, wait, it's not the right time?
Look, to them, I say that there will never be the right time. I mean, are you going to wait for a vaccine to happen before you open up your borders? I think that's a call really for chief ministers to take. And I can understand the concern. But the one thing we can do when we are flying people from one place to the other is to ensure the strictest possible protocol. Make sure that those who are traveling have no symptoms. And make sure that they are unable to spread the virus, at least as they come to the airport and as they fly.
Right.
Once they land in a particular state, it's for the states to decide what they are really going to do. Again, they can check patients for symptoms. There are ways in which you can actually, since we are providing mobile numbers to all the state governments, there is a way in which they can do some electronic surveillance in case they have certain norms regarding home quarantine, etc. So, that's the best that can be done at this point of time. If you keep sitting around and doing absolutely nothing, is the situation going to be any better 2 months or 3 months down the road? Probably not.
No, that's a valid question. Do you, sir, for this for you and Mr. Deep Kalra, do you think capping fares is the right way to go? Do you think that, of course, at the end of the day, this is about corporates and your own profits? You're not going to get a bailout if the airline shuts down. Do you think capping fares is the right way to go at this time?
I think all of us are votaries of a free market, but we understand the concern of the government. There was this great concern at this time that because there will be a bump in traffic, people trying to get back homes, that there could be potentially a situation where the whole sector would be in disrepute if there was, predatory pricing which was to happen by the airlines. So while we would have been happier if these caps had been higher or if there had been a freer way of pricing these tickets, we do understand the concern of the government. And at this time, it was important that we get started off, no matter what the conditions of that start are. It was just important to get flying again.
Deep Kalra, if you could come in also on that fact that even now when you see hotels opening up, we're not sure on under what norms or what regulations, but what do you see the new normal to be for travel industry? Of course, the biggest will be that with borders at the moment, no international flights, that you're going to rely on domestic travel. So how are you going to change that experience? Because at one time, of course, it was cheaper for an Indian traveler to go to Thailand than perhaps go to a good hotel in Goa or in the south of India. What's the new normal going to be like for Indian travel? And do you also, as somebody who's seeing all the travel sectors, we've seen the reports of layoffs and other big e-commerce firms like Swiggy, Zomato, etc. What's your worry on that if we don't open up soon for travel and tourism?
Yeah, Sonia, I think one step at a time. So I think it's great that we've got the domestic skies open again and people can actually get from point A to point B on an aircraft, like Ajay said rightfully, in perhaps the safest way possible. It remains, to be seen if price caps, etc., convoluted formula around pricing is necessary. I think at this point of time, there was no need to give a bottom price because I don't think that's even relevant. Everyone right now is trying to save money, but giving a top price and a ceiling is understandable. But the new norm for classic tourism, as we understand it, leisure travel, not business for a minute, is to be redefined. And I think the first kind of leisure trips that will be made will perhaps not be made on a flight. I think they'll be made by road. I think it'll be people getting into their own cars or into a car or a van or a bus where they feel comfortable with their own people, a minibus, a large group of people who know each other, not with strangers, driving to a remote place, staying in a resort where you get a good feeling of safety and sanitization, and spending time there away from the house that you've been locked up in. We all hear that parts of India are right now doing very well in managing the virus. So Northeast has done exceedingly well. Some parts in the hills are doing very well. And I think these are the kind of places people would like to go and should go, as we need to keep in mind when travel and tourism happens, there's a trickle-down effect. Everyone in the value chain who works there, including restaurants, including street vendors, everyone gains and everyone manages to earn a living and put food on the plate for his family or her family. And that's critical. So I think this becomes important. Next step will be which are the countries which are willing to accept our tourists and which are the countries we're willing to accept tourists from.
Right.
So there's a new concept of travel bubbles that have come up. So Australia and New Zealand have agreed that they will do a lot of travel between the two countries, which could be relevant going forward because they're comfortable with the practices and the management of the virus in both countries. Similarly, can we think of a travel bubble between some countries, partner countries, which are not too far, equally safe? Can we do something after a month or two when the virus comes under control? Can we do something with a country like Thailand where we have a lot of travel, more people going than coming, but there's a massive Buddhist circuit. So we could look at, I think, similar things. But right now is the time to focus on domestic travel. I think there's a lot of India to see. And people should actually take this opportunity to discover our own country during this time, air travel being one of the modes to get there. And we do think that the millennials will be the first to get on flights to go for tourism and get to a destination and then stay there for a couple of weeks and travel very safely again. See, for me, what's very important, I believe, is that we're as safe as the weakest link. So it's really critical that at all steps of the journey, we are safe. It's not just in the plane. It's at the airport. It's when you board. It's when you get into a cab till you get to your hotel and how the hotels take care. So we have to be safe right throughout. And that's why I believe there's a huge responsibility on the traveler too. Are you actually doing the things you need to do at all points of time? Are you even wearing your mask in the proper manner? Are you not touching your mask? If you touch your mask to show your face for identification when you enter the airport, do you sanitize your hands or wash them after that? I think all of this becomes really important, and we, through our platform, are going to actually reinforce these points every time someone books a trip through us.
In fact, I'll just also get the final thoughts tonight from the three big hoteliers who I'm hoping we'll see hotels also open again soon. But Mr. Puneet Chhatwal, we all saw that, in fact, after the tragic events of 26/11, it redefined the hotel industry, redefined the issue of how people feel safe when they go into a hotel. That became the new normal. This is another defining moment for the hotel industry on how all of you will deal with it, how you will convince people that they're safe when they come in, and whether it will be something which is also an experience people will enjoy. Will it be affordable? Are you going to have distancing of how many people? As there are already limits of how many people in a room, but will there be distancing? What will restaurants be like? Is there an SOP in place? Is this something that the hotel industry has worked out at the moment?
Absolutely. The industry has worked collectively and has made recommendations to the tourism ministry. And I think a lot of that information will be distributed very soon. And all steps have to be taken to, protect and safeguard both employees and customers. But I think we need to differentiate between three key milestones. We are currently what you call during Corona. Then there will be something which is like a post-COVID. And then there is a life after what you call the post-vaccine. And I think every time we talk about a new normal and what are you defining and what are you doing, some of the stuff will become mandatory and will become a part and parcel of our life because of the safety and security of the customers. Just like metal detectors and getting your phone through them became a part of our lives after 26/11. So wearing masks or sanitizing your hands and, all the other measures of having PPE would be a part of the new normal, but that will continue to evolve as we make the transition from one phase to the other. However, as we have the opportunity on the national television, I do want to add to what was said previously by Deep, just to reinforce. It's not just 10% of the GDP that comes from this industry. It's 12.5% of the direct and indirect jobs. Direct jobs being 8.5% and 12.5% to the jobs that it creates in other sectors. The second ask, which Ajay had mentioned, and I think was a very basic ask, and I wish it happens in the next few months, is that this hotels business gets the status of an industry and finds a place in the Constitution. I think it's high time, 70 years post-independence, that this should happen. And as both of us are on the Executive Committee of Hotel Association of India, we have been kind of lobbying for it because that will make life easier in terms of getting an industry status. And last but not least, I think the important thing this crisis has taught us is the industry, the way I have seen it, has come together so well. It does not matter which brand, which company, whether you are in airlines or, the best way this is depicted is through the safety video created by Make My Travel. And this shows how all of us came together. I don't remember when it happened last time. So I think that's the kind of things. Yes, we are there. We will make everything possible to ensure the safety of all our customers and all our associates. But I think very important message is that we all came together for the same and the common cause.
Absolutely. And in fact, Mr. Baqaiya, if I can bring you in on that as well, how much longer do you think the hotel industry can afford to stay shut. We heard the FHRI have said 70% of us may have to close down, because it's not just about the big hotels. It's about the small hotels, it's about the homestays, it's about the tour guides. How much longer do you think the hotel industry can stay shut? When do you think it reaches absolutely critical stage of opening up again? Your final thoughts on the show, sir.
Sonia, my thoughts are that we are already a little too late. And for many businesses, unfortunately, there will be no reopening of doors again. So I don't think we have any more grace time for this. We need to get back to some kind of normalcy as quickly as is possible. I'll pick on one of the other words that you used earlier as a question: how affordable are hotels going to be? I think for the next many months they're going to be exceedingly affordable. We don't see huge demand. We see supply being strong. We want everyone's business, so affordability is going to be good. The other major thing you will notice as a guest is the disappearance or the metamorphosis of what we've known as lavish buffets, because customers are not going to be comfortable picking up a spoon that somebody else is touching, and with more and more moving to in-room dining as a safety measure and moving to touchless, the buffet that we've all sort of enjoyed thoroughly over the last few years would see a major change.
Absolutely. Final thoughts from you, Navjeet Ahluwalia, because Mr. Baqaiya talking about affordability, it's also about a feel-good factor. When you're going on a holiday, you want to feel good about it. How will you bring back the feel-good, the feel-safe factor into hotels?
Yeah, Sonia, so I think just a few points, I think maybe 3 points I'd like to make. One, I think Hilton has been around for 100 years, and in its 100-year history, we celebrated 100 years last year. We've never closed a hotel. So I think that this crisis has been the deepest and the widest the world has ever seen. So I think the enormity of it is just unimaginable. And the way it's affecting when we reopen, how many of these hotels, as Ajay pointed out, will actually be able to reopen at least with the same level of staffing, how many people might still retain their jobs. That's something that we really worry about, and we really, I think India is probably the only country that really hasn't received any support, government support. Absolutely. I mean, we've seen countries across the world have come forward and provided salary support to people working in these hotels or to owners who own these hotels, but India has really been lacking on that front.
Exactly, and when you have layoffs, people won't be able to spend to come to the hotels also, because if somebody's lost their job, where will they won't be able to travel on leisure. That's what they'll cut back on. That's an important point as well.
And my second point is that I think the need for people to travel as human beings, to travel and create memories with their loved ones and see the world, that's never going to go away. So I think travel eventually will come back, and probably we'll see leisure travel coming back much faster and bigger. And business travel, because people have got used to the new ways of technology, will probably reduce. Meetings and groups will come back last. But I think that, whether this takes 2 years or 3 years to get back to 2019 levels, we don't know. But I think that one thing is for sure, we're going to get back to where we were. I think we have to see in this crisis how we can use this as an opportunity to come out stronger as an industry and as hotels all put together. And like I said, we have to be able to provide confidence to guests that they are safe when they travel. And I think that's the most important thing right now.
Absolutely. I think safety the key factor. But I think the point everyone has stressed, how important it is to restart India, to get those jobs and the sector back on its feet. Thank you all very much for joining me with your perspective. It's been great talking to you. Thank you. And thank you for, as you said, have a safe trip, the safety pledge. Thank you.